I've lived most of my life feeling like I needed to be in control, that I needed to force life to look a certain way. It was like this constant chase to control everything around me and to make it look like the vision that I had in my mind. I was following the logic and approach that, okay, if I force my life to look a certain way, or if it does look this certain way, then there's going to be less uncertainty and I'll be better off and I'll be happier and more successful. But wow, was this chase and this mindset truly limiting me in so many ways? This constant need to chase, to control, to force life to happen. Because what I actually found was the more I tried to force life, to control it so that it looks a certain way, it was like the more resistance I felt and the less I felt like life was naturally happening for me. Trying to control everything is exhausting and also impossible. We can't control all aspects of our life. We can't even control most aspects of our life. So in trying to always be in control and force things to happen, it was an exhausting and endless chase. And so today, I want to share with you the shift that has been a really, really big breakthrough for me and that I think a lot of us need to hear. And that's shifting from trying to control to trusting, coming back to trust, and how trusting in life can actually make our life work out in all of these beautiful ways that we never even imagined and set us free from this constant need to chase and control and force. But before we dive into this topic, if you're not already, don't forget to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening to the show. And it would mean the world to me if you took a second to just rate the show, leave a comment, share your thoughts with me. I'm so grateful that you're listening and that you're here. And I'm excited to dive into this topic with you. So let's get to it. I believe there's genuinely a reason for that saying that it happens when you're not looking for it, or things work out when you stop needing it so badly. It's not just an annoying cliche saying that people say so that you let go a little bit and loosen up and stop chasing. There's a reason. What I genuinely believe to be true is the life that's really meant for us, our destined path, the experiences, the opportunities, the people, they are not meant to be forced. They don't need to be forced. They will come into our lives naturally when they are meant to, as they are meant to, if they are meant to. In fact, again, like I've shared, what I've noticed is that the more I try to force something and the more I have tunnel vision on needing my life to look that way, the less I feel like life actually works out for me. And the more resistance I feel and the more stress and anxiety I feel, because again, it's like that constant chase. And it prevents me from being open to the things that really are meant for me, that might be even better, and that actually are aligned, not just what I was envisioning in my mind and what I had wanted my life to look like or hoped might have happened. Because it's no secret that we all want our life to look a certain way, right? We're human beings. We have dreams. We have an idea of the path we want to be on. But what if having such tunnel vision on that path and controlling and forcing it so badly is causing us to miss out on all of these amazing other things, on the things that really are meant for us, on something that might be even better? So why do we feel this need to force and control? If I think about why I felt like the need to be in control all the time and force my life to happen a certain way and be on a certain timeline, is we're surrounded by all these other people doing these amazing things, doing that in that relationship, making that amount of money, getting that job, having that level of success for their podcast, whatever, that we feel like we need to keep up. And if we're not in control and not forcing it to look that way and making sure our life stays in that box, then we might fall behind. We might not be as successful as them. We might not have a life that looks like theirs, and we want our life to look like theirs. So that's a big one for me. But I did a whole nother episode on this, that their timeline has nothing to do with yours, and it's impossible to be behind in our own life. So I'll link that below because I do think that's another beautiful conversation and topic. But another one is, again, we all have this dream, this vision, this plan but again, another one is we all had this dream, this vision, this plan, maybe from when we were really young, of what we wanted our life to look like, what we hoped our life would look like, that timeline we're meant to stick to. But if I've learned anything in life, and I know I share a lot of the things I learn on this, but it's just a saying, right? It's that life never turns out as we think it will. Life really never meets that exact vision that we had in our minds. Think about it. When has life worked out exactly as you pictured it? To the T. My guess is never. But that's not a bad thing. Because the truth is, the more we try to force that vision and make our lives look that way, the way that maybe our child self wanted, that way that we envisioned it, the way that we're maybe told that we should, the more we're missing out on our actual life. That tunnel vision causes us to not stay open to the opportunities that might be more aligned, that might naturally come our way because we're trying to force that other one so badly. The old me would constantly force, but this new me trusts instead. And I'm going to dive into a couple specific examples here to help paint this picture and maybe help spark some ideas of what you might be forcing currently in your life and how you can come back to trust. So the first one was the growth and success of the podcast. Naturally, when I started, I was like, yeah, give it a couple months. Like, then I'll have a lot of listeners, right? Then it'll take off. I had this vision and this hope that it would grow quickly. You know, I was seeing other podcasts be successful and take off, and some even sooner than others, right? And that fed my desire to chase that certain outcome, to have a certain amount of growth and success early on. I wanted it to follow a certain timeline. But what this caused me to do was have tunnel vision on the growth, on the metrics, on the outcome. I was missing out on focusing on what really mattered, which was the authenticity I was showing up with, the true value I was creating, the impact I was making on maybe the few people listening early on, right? I was just focused on the end result, that I was missing the beautiful part of the process. I eventually asked myself, like, why was I chasing these results so badly? Why did I need those metrics and that outcome? Why? And I realized it was like to prove myself, to prove my worth, to feel like I was good enough by getting a certain outcome and result. And so what I realized was the podcast wasn't meant to grow quickly. It wasn't meant to be an overnight success, because with it not being an overnight success, I've been able to do the inner work and learn the most important lessons that I actually needed to, which was finding that worth within myself, not seeking it from out there, and letting go of that desire to prove myself to anybody. If I did achieve that overnight success, let's say, then I wouldn't have come back to remind myself that my worth is always within me, and I have nothing that I need to prove to anyone through certain metrics or listens or followers or anything like that. If I did achieve that overnight success, then I would have continued to believe that that's where my worth lied, and that I did have something to prove, and that I needed to grow more and more to continue to prove myself to people. But the universe had another plan, and that plan was to teach me the most important lesson, which is that worth is always within me, and I am enough as I am. There's nothing that I need to prove, no metrics or outcome that I need to chase. And in letting go of needing to force certain metrics or outcomes or results when it comes to the podcast, so many positive things have come of it. I felt more at peace. I've been more present in actually being authentic and giving value that feels true to me, letting go of this need to prove my worth and to rush through the process to get to a certain outcome. And it has felt like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And on top of that, it's really felt like things have just naturally started to align and naturally started to flow and happen once I stopped forcing it so much. The growth just naturally happens. There's nothing that I need to force or chase. In fact, I've realized if I shift my focus to the process, to showing up authentically as myself, that self that now knows that she doesn't need to prove herself to anyone, then things will even more naturally come my way. That timeline, that growth, that result, that is meant for me, not the one that I was trying to impose and force. Okay, another big one that I often found myself forcing or chasing or controlling is dating and relationships. Quick little interruption here. If you feel like you're constantly chasing, constantly forcing life to look a certain way and feeling like things really aren't working out for you and knowing that you want to make changes, maybe not sure what those changes are, I am now working one-on-one with clients in my life coaching practice to help you step into a life that feels much more aligned and fulfilling and exciting to you. So if that calls to you, if you want to explore this a little bit more, check out my website linked below. Book a free session with me. I would love to learn more about your life and help open your eyes to all the amazing changes you can make and truly step into your true potential. So that's all. Let's get back to the episode. I had tunnel vision on dating the perfect hot finance bro athlete, the perfect on paper guy in my mind. Always, when I think about my past relationships, the guys I've dated, that's who it's been. And if you ask me why, it was again me seeking this worth and validation from that, in my mind, perfect guy being attracted to me and admiring me and wanting me. That made me feel internally worthy. But when I reflect on even more, what I was also doing was forcing what I thought my life should look like or had to look like. That perfect life that I wanted, I was having tunnel vision on forcing that by dating these guys that I thought were perfect on paper, that fit that vision and that idea of what I thought my life should look like. That beautiful family, right? With the beautiful house and the kids, and he's fit and kind and athletic, and he's all these things on paper. And so I noticed that I would always go after that kind of guy without even maybe knowing them. I would just have tunnel vision on like forcing that to happen just because they seemed perfect on paper. And not forcing, like holding a gun to their head to date me, right? You know what I mean? Meaning like I was getting ahead of myself before really knowing that person because they checked all the external boxes. And clearly, none of those relationships or dates really worked out in the end because that was my motive and that was the tunnel vision that I had. It wasn't what was going to ever give me that true, healthy, genuine connection. That's the kind of relationship I really want. But the one that I was forcing and controlling was the one that I thought that I should, or the one that I thought that would make me feel worthy and good about myself, or the one that I thought other people would look at and admire and maybe envy in certain ways or something like that. My intentions were misaligned, all is to say. And I was forcing these misaligned relationships, these misaligned connections just because I thought they were perfect. And in taking a step away from dating for a while, I was really able to get clarity on that. And in having that space, I'm now able to see so clearly what I was doing and that all of those were kind of forced. And it was me trying to impose that control to have this relationship that I thought would get me that perfect life. But now I understand wholeheartedly, none of those were meant to work out for a couple reasons. A, similar to the podcast, I was meant to uncover my worth within myself, not seek it from out there, not seek it from that perfect on paper hot guy, right? I was meant to learn to find that within myself, that I don't need to prove that I'm worthy of any guy's attention. And I also know to be true that once I am in that place where I'm so sure of my worth and confident of who I am and not seeking any relationship or guy to make me feel that way, then the actual aligned connection will come into my life. Again, not when I'm looking for it, not when I'm chasing it, not when I'm trying to force that timing or force it to be with that specific person, but when I let go of that control and trust instead. And this can go for friendships too. And that's another one that I've noticed in my life. Like, there are certain friendships that I was trying to cling to, let's say from my past or something like that. And maybe we live in different cities, or maybe we just don't work together anymore and we really just don't cross paths as much anymore and it's hard to keep up. Or maybe we've just grown in different directions. For a while, my old self was trying to force these friendships and force these connections because I wanted to cling to what was. I wanted to cling to the past that we had such a great connection and great bond. But I've realized that we're meant to kind of evolve and outgrow certain friendships. And the ones that are meant to be in our lives are not meant to be forced. We don't need to continue to push against that resistance and that natural drifting. If we naturally stay close with people through enough aligned effort, that's beautiful. But if we naturally drift, that's okay too. We don't need to continue to force what might not be meant for us in the long term. So honestly, when it comes to the podcast growth, to dating and relationships, to friendships, I'm so grateful that things might not have worked out as I thought or once hoped. I'm so grateful that they worked out as they did because I was able to learn all of these amazing lessons along the way and understand that a lot of those things I was forcing and controlling was because I was seeking something out there. I was trying to make my life look a certain way to feel something within myself. But the universe had another plan, and none of those were really meant to be. And so I know now that all of those things not working out how I had initially thought, the podcast not growing at a certain speed, the dates and relationships that didn't turn into marriage, the friendships that might have drifted, they're all intentional. And I trust that it's part of the universe's plan and timeline because I'm coming back to trust. I no longer force and control in this area. And quick disclaimer before I continue, I do also want to acknowledge I'm not suggesting here that you can just sit back on the couch, kick your feet up, and trust that everything's going to come to you without doing anything, without lifting a finger. That's absolutely not what I'm saying here. For life to work out for us, it requires aligned action. It requires our intentions being in the right place and our actions aligning with those intentions. But what I mean when I say trust and let go of control and forcing is in taking those aligned actions, not trying to force that certain outcome, but being open to where those actions lead naturally. What naturally comes into your path and what naturally comes to you as you take those actions that feel aligned with you. So I just wanted to say that it's not about doing nothing. That's not what I'm saying here. Coming back to trust simply means trusting that the outcome and results and the things that come our way through those aligned actions, we can trust that they will be exactly what's best for us and that it's all for a reason. So what are some things that I do when I notice myself having that tunnel vision on needing life to look a certain way, on forcing a certain outcome or result and trying to control too much? I take a step back and remind myself, this is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. All that I need to do is focus on continuing to take steps that I value, that I align with, that are aligned with my pure intentions. And I can trust that even if the outcome and result doesn't look exactly like I might have envisioned, that what comes my way will be even better and more aligned, and that I don't have to force that resistance that I'm feeling. Because again, we can't control those outcomes in life. What we can control are the actions and steps that we take. And we can control the mindset that we have. So coming back to these reminders will help us with that mindset of staying open, letting go of that tunnel vision, not forcing life so badly, and perhaps missing out on the things that are really meant for us. Those opportunities, those people we're meant to meet, anything. And finally, a really big one for me, how I continue to return to trust, honestly, is spirituality. Having something bigger, whether that be God, whether it be the universe, whether it be that divine tree in your yard, not even needing to label it, but just trusting that there is something bigger out there that is guiding us, that does have your back, that has a bigger plan for you. So we don't have to be in that driver's seat, forcing and controlling every single minute of our lives. We can combine that aligned action with trust, knowing that that greater force, God and the universe, the tree, are at play. They are at work. They're at work for you. And if things didn't work out your way, that might be an amazing thing. This new path might lead to something totally better. Not might, it will. Yes, it might look different than what you had initially thought, but that's a good thing. So instead of trying to force it back on that other path, maybe just see what happens. Let go and trust and continue to take action that's aligned with you and taking you forward closer to the life that you want to live, even if that life looks a little bit different. We can trust that it's going to be a beautiful one and one that's even more aligned with this beautiful version of us. So simply let go and trust. And that is the message today. I hope there was something in today's episode that resonated with you. If it did, don't forget to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening to Fulfilled. This would mean the world to me and give you access to both episodes every single week when they come out. Also take a moment and rate the show. It'd really mean the world to me and the success of the podcast. So I'll see you all again soon on your journeys to living this life fully.